5 games played today. Azir, Yanara, and Xinqiao banned away by Gen.G. Wukong and Orianna taken out by KT.
And we, I think, are going to see a big focus here today on both supports. I, for one, having casted these guys back in the Challenger days, still can't truly believe that we are about to watch a World Semi-Finals. Both these players have had their ups and downs on different rosters. Peter on Nongshim, Duro on Gen.G. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're seeing Prio on that Nico, because Peter has been absolutely lethal on that. But instead, it's going to be the respect towards BDD with the early pickup of the Taliyah.
So it will be Taliyah. The Galio ban to me was interesting because that's trying to open the door for Rumble, very likely. Or, some of these combos like the Galio Jarvan. But I am expecting with that, you're giving over the Rumble. So clearly Gen.G had to know that that was going to be happening. And still they do just choose Taliyah because you're giving over two of the strongest AP champions really in the game right now in Nico and Rumble. Of course, there are a lot of comfortable tank answers up on the top side. Sion is unbanned, kind of conspicuously absent thus far, but Trundle is available. Some of those answers that people have to make it more palatable are there.
And the Galio, not only into the Rumble, but also just because it has been perma-banned against Chovy for the longest time. If you can get 2 champions, though, without really asking for any bans, it would be these two for Perfect and Peter.
Yeah.
I think even when Perfect was struggling, his Rumble has always been great. And there was a large period throughout this year where Peter was just straight up the best Nico. Even when KT wasn't necessarily in the best form, was many times banned against him. We're going to see Canyon's Vita Taliyah as a combo that we've been seeing for the entirety of the year. Guaranteed lockdown and a lot of ability to set up plays.
Just so powerful, the ability to catch out one player really easily, add on something like a Corki that can Valkyrie in for the follow-up, can land those missiles. Gen.G have a huge amount of burst already coming out from this comp. If I'm KT, though, I'm very happy with these first 2 picks, and I think for KT, finding comfort in game 1 and maybe being able to pick up that first game actually starts that snowball rolling. It's when you're against Gen.G.
Oh.
Okay, it's a Yone for BDD.
And BDD was on the receiving end of one of the most insane 1v9 performances I've seen from Chovy against him on this Yone specifically. So not only does he pick it away, and is this a huge show of confidence for the man that has been stalwart in the mid lane all year, but it also is a pick away because we are of course playing in Fearless, and this is something that Gen.G even used very recently in their last series to pick up a win.
And I just think so far the red side draft looking really, really good for KT. Not only do you get a lot of these power picks, you already have mid lane counter. You can throw down some protection bands up towards top side if you're worried about things, like the Ornn or the Sion or whatever. So I do really like what they're doing so far in draft.
Would expect an Aurora ban here. That is something that Kiin has gone towards often into the Rumble. And with the Vi and Corki already, there is plenty of AD damage there. There is the one thing I do worry about for KT is the early laning prio. In many of the matchups between these two teams, it's been a lot about who can get off to a good start. And it's going to be the Alistar instead, so paying the respect to Duro.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rumble should give you some prio. You're expecting, as long as you have a strong AD pairing on the bot side, that Nico is going to help to give you prio down there as well. Clearly, Gen.G targeting some of the safer AD carries will be interesting to see. What else they want to take away. A lot of the kind of safe targets have been things like Ezreal, like Xayah, like Jhin. We'll see if they really are concerned about some of these picks from deokdam and want to make him more vulnerable to this obvious dive that they are going for.
Going to get rid of the Civet, although Canyon has shown us that he can smite the spell shield out of midair with that Lee Sin play that he's so well known for. Here, deciding doesn't want to have to do that if he goes in with the cease and desist. So, KT, where are we looking? Jungle, very likely on this pick. Could go AD carry and save the jungle for final pick as well.
And Cuzz has had his fair share of iconic champions. The Sejuani is one you might look towards specifically because you're playing with the Yone.
Yeah.
That is a combo that we have seen many a time. Yeah, the Sivir, I think, is just very solid into Corki as well. Actually, one of the few champions that can do solid in that 2v2 matchup. Just going to be the Jarvan, though. I don't love the Jarvan into the Taliyah Corki combo, but it is obviously a lot of comfort, and the combination with the Rumble is quite strong.
Yeah, good combination with the Rumble. Obviously, you need an AD jungler here when you do have already the Rumble. You don't want to be too heavy on the AP. And I'm just kind of curious to see, are they going to try to go lane dominant for KT? They were picking a lot of Caitlyn early on, and Caitlyn is still up and available if they want to try to play for a really dominant lane 2v2. You could go Caitlyn Nico. Something that you talked about, is that lane priority and how that has been so key in their matchups.
Kiin going to look for the Jace in the top lane, answering fire with fire. Trying to push that Rumble back. Can, of course, work in a lane swap as well, which we have been seeing. AD carries going up towards that top side. Instead, the Ambessa, the hover for Kiin. And in the end, he'll go towards the Scion.
This is more what I was thinking, kind of just assuming, like I touched on earlier, Scion or Ornn are kind of the obvious answers. Generally, people do just like playing a lot of these neutralizing picks into the Rumble. Once you have Kaenic, all of a sudden you're not really taking damage anymore. But of course, the fact that the Yone can be in the side lane later on does make that a little bit less valuable. It's not like it is a standard control mage mid lane.
Looking towards maybe Kai'Sa here for deokdam.
Like Caitlyn.
Yeah, Kate, I think, is a lot stronger when it comes to the, as you already highlighted, Azil, when it comes to the pure lane. So I wouldn't be surprised to see deokdam pick that one up, and it will be locked in.
Yeah, I mean, it just makes a lot of sense when you're talking about how a lot of these series between Gen.G and KT have been decided in lane, right? So draft for some early prio. You do have a really strong dive and team fight here with really everyone except the Caitlyn. You have pushing power on the bot side. You have pushing power in the top side. Yone, you're not expecting to get pushed against the Taliyah, but still, that's a lot of lanes that are going to have some prio, which is going to open up opportunities for Cuzz, because we know when we look at the one series that KT did win against Gen.G, it was a lot off of Cuzz and BDD having these heroic performances, and being able to be enabled just feels so critical.
When I look at the early game for Gen.G, that is just going to be the mid-jungle duo, right? So there's a lot of pressure being put here onto Canyon and Chovy. Chovy, with the Taliyah, has a lot of ability to impact those side lanes. And I'm also going to wonder how much space is Duro going to get, because in these 2v2, that is going to be, as we highlighted, the lane that is going to be very hard to get out of. We could maybe be seeing some swaps happening, but if that's not the case and Duro's locked in lane, Canyon has been better at Worlds, but still isn't the jungler what you go to first when you think of having the highest level of early impact.
Absolutely, and I mean, they could obviously, as you're saying, you know, swap Scion down towards bot, but if deokdam then matches, if they get, you know, wind of this, we have seen that exact lane swap matchup play out where Caitlyn can dominate in the 1v1, so that can be a difficult 1v1 if Caitlyn goes top and actually matches the Corki. So level 1 feels pretty important here already.
Let's get on to the Rift. The champions-elect versus the Cinderella story as Gen.G take on KT Rolster in this best-of-5. A spot in Chengdu awaits the victor. It's either T1 or top Esports. For Gen.G, it would be the culmination of a story long told. The culmination of aspirations and dreams, expectations over the last couple of years. For KT, truly is something out of a fairy tale, a storybook, you have to say. Similar to that DRX run back just a few years ago.
I mean, there's just so much. Unfortunately, I'm hoping that we'll have the time to go into it because, of course, you know, sometimes I don't want to enforce that idea, but sometimes LCK versus LCK can be a little bit slow. But there is the Canyon and deokdam who used to be in the same team. DK that didn't really was able to make the mark that they were hoping for. We have BDD, who after he was replaced by Chovy had what I think is the worst year of his career. Not necessarily just to him, but that Nongshim roster was really prone to underperformance, was a really tough bounce back. And again, the fact that the expectations on KT were really not high. They barely squeaked into the Legend group going way back. It was really up between them and DK and Nongshim for who would be that eventual 4th seed towards Worlds.
And I think a lot of us were surprised with how well KT have done after coming into Worlds. Their roller coaster keeps climbing up and up and up. Only team so far undefeated across the 2025 World Championship.
Yeah, and you just have to wonder, how far can they go, right? You know, of course, people are coming in here and they say, you know, it's Gen.G, you're going to get smacked, it's going to be a sweep, but I feel like KT fans just need something to hang their hats on, right? You get a little bit of momentum in this first game, and I feel like people want to believe in that story. They want to believe in the underdog. It's such a fun thing to cheer for. This team that is constantly overlooked, that never seems to be able to get it quite right. When it finally does start to work out, it's just a beautiful story. You know, you want to see guys like BDD be able to prove their worth, you know, to take down someone who you were replaced by, who everyone is overlooking you for, I think is just awesome to think about.
It really is, and what a place to prove it, that against Chovy's Taliyah, 25-4 on this all-time. It's a pretty one-sided scoreline for Chovy, as are many things for Gen.G this year. They've only lost 2 best-of-5s across the entirety of 2025. One was to KT, and one was to Hanwha Life Esports all the way back in the qualification in the LCK Cup.
And it's been close calls many a time. We've seen them go against a 5th game against many a team domestically, against or in MSI as well. But outside of those two, they have been victorious. And then for Gen.G, I think, again, it is the weight of the expectations. I feel we have seen Chovy truly be consumed by that all-encompassing need for finally breaking through the barrier, which he's never got further than semis.
And I mean, it is a really brutal metric by which we are judging Gen.G and by which we are judging Chovy. But it is because he's been looked at, you know, maybe not at every given moment, but many moments for many years now as the best mid laner in the world. And now they're looking mid.
Cuzz looking to gank that best mid laner in the world. Chovy flashes immediately into the flag and drag. Knocked back with a seismic shove. But his rocks become his tombstone. KT on the board for first blood.
And when you want to talk about pressure, flashing in line with the flag and drag there, I think he was maybe trying to flash over it or anticipating, you know, an EQ flash or something like that. But Cuzz doesn't even have to flash. BDD doesn't even have to flash. And they got first blood, and it goes to the Yone.
And that is in a matchup where Yone is expected to struggle early on. And it's Cuzz that finds the early angle, circumvents all vision, doesn't get spotted by Canyon, and sets up his mid laner for success immediately. Because once you hit 6, this matchup becomes infinitely easier.
And I like to joke about this, but I'm kind of not really joking. Yone's hit full build. You get that early Vamp Scepter, and it can just be so difficult now to actually have Prio to be able to poke you down, because you can hit this critical threshold where both Taliyah has a bad buy in just the tier, so you're not really getting a lot more damage, and you have so much sustain that now all of a sudden you can't really even get Prio in that lane. And that really was the only lane that we were expecting Gen.G to have that early Prio in. So BDD gonna be in his comfort zone now here, and Chovy's gonna have to play super defensive with no flash for the next 5 minutes.
Cuzz going to be in his comfort zone as well. The ability to invade into Canyon's jungle, who has been a little bit quieter in the early game than Canyon of yesteryear. I think the player that's most struggled on Gen.G across summer has been Canyon, so we'll see if Cuzz can punish him appropriately.
And by a large margin, Canyon not just not being able to find the biggest early game impact, which has been kind of a constant through his career, but also just not having that much impact in general, which is not something that you've been able to say for him for a large part of it, as we do have Cuzz will get spotted here, but it is very telling that, again, it's Cuzz visiting BDD. These players on many A team have been together. Obviously, we're also on the 2023 KT roster, which was stopped by JDG back in that quarterfinal.
And I would just find it so interesting. Like, it is a very first world problem, but Gen.G is so stacked and there's so many stars on this team that sometimes it can be a bit difficult to figure out what is your role within this team, right?
Yep.
You know, when you take players who are like the focus on a different roster and you put them all together and you build with more and more and more stars, not everyone can be the star. Not everyone can take that kind of central role. So I do think sometimes players have to reinvent themselves a bit and kind of figure out, okay, well, what playstyle works best for me and enables my team to have the most success?
And this is about as bad as it gets for Gen.G, because the only one that's ahead is Kiin. And that's nice, but he's not, both in terms of champion or in terms of player, the one that needs to be ahead. We're seeing Ruler really struggle in this 2v2, as we were expecting, but because of the lack of jungle intervention from Canyon, they've been able to find a lot there. And then Chovy, obviously, thanks to the gank, has also fallen behind. Now, Gen.G's objective setups have generally been great, but even that, KT got ahead of them and was able to pick up that first dragon. So we'll see if Gen.G is able to contest for these grubs in about a minute and a half.
Both teams going for the lane swap, having their bot lanes go up towards that top side because of those grubs that we talk about. You'll see the top laners just matching bot. They can TP up if they're so required. Did see Cuzz hanging around mid a little bit, but wasn't really an easy gank path on Chovy, so he's just going to clear his top side, and Canyon mirrored down towards that bottom side is clearing up towards the grubs. Peter looking for some damage on Duro, but can always just dash away to the Corki.
Yeah, not going to be too much of a big deal, but they're just trying to keep the push going. And though we do see Ruler a little bit behind, at least the Caitlyn has not been farming a lot of plates or anything like that. They've done a good job of actually keeping the farm close enough and keeping them off the tower. It hasn't just been this total disaster where sometimes these Caitlyn lanes really can get out of control, especially when you are going against a weak early laning support like the Rakan. But Duro and Ruler are doing a great job of just kind of minimizing the damage as much as they possibly can, and that's really your job.
We'll have to see whether any contest can come through or whether KT can keep this early lane supremacy going and make sure that they are able to also turn it into grubs, as we do see deokdam just try and get as much chip damage down as objective is about to spawn. And it should be looking good for KT to contest that. We do see Duro TPing back, but Ruler, chunked out as he is. I have a lot of faith in his man's Corki, but
It would
without
be very
your health
greedy.
bar, that is and only a tier and long sword and some bits. I don't know if that's going to be enough.
It would be very greedy to go for that. Duro not yet level 6,
Say
so doesn't
that.
have the quickness. They're going to step around the corner here, poke their noses in, see if Cuzz is doing anything a little bit illegal, but for the moment, Cuzz should be able to get one of these grubs. KT pushed in the top side. Ruler's going to answer that. Canyon looking for the flank from the bottom side. Bolt breaker onto BDD, lands the knock-up. Fate sealed out from BDD across the wall, using that ultimate just for a little bit of extra distance between him and Gen.G. Chovy coming in. BDD will dash out of the back of the pit, and KT will escape with only one of the grubs. Great smite from Canyon to secure the one that was contested, and Gen.G will get their second.
Honestly, really well played by Canyon to navigate that situation. You know, BDD had Prow through mid, but Canyon just kind of set up shop, waited for him, forced out that ult, and got a chunk onto BDD very early. And from that spot, you no longer really want to fight, right? Yeah. So it just became this one grubbing out, even with those winning lanes, and what looked like a better spot for KT to at least be able to get two.
I do like seeing that Kiin also TP to mid, because with the Cyanode he would have been able to join the fight soon anyway, but because there wasn't a continued contest from KT, was able to get towards bot lane earlier. Perfect still was able to equalize the gold lead just a little bit, able to get some time alone in that lane.
If you're a top laner, you love Peter right now. Hangs around, waits for the double recall, then drags the wave so it slow pushes in towards Perfect, and he's like, okay, I'll very happily just accept this closer to my tower, means that I'm at very minimal risk of a jungle gank.
It is hard to find someone that doesn't love Peter. I
That's
gotta say though, this man has been farming fans throughout the year, both with his interviews and his really stellar performance, particularly again on the Nico. Has had his fair ups and downs, but he is a KT player, so that kind of comes with the territory.
Sure, but just to highlight how good it was, that was a whole wave, a cannon wave lost for Kiin, and Perfect was able to get there, pick up the cannon, pick up a couple of the melee minions, so it's a big gold swing for Perfect. Obviously doesn't matter too much in the grand scheme of things, but those are the small things that can add up.
No, they absolutely can. I mean, unfortunately for Kiin, he already had a significant advantage. You know, he has been doing really well in the 1v1, and honestly to me, Kiin is just point blank period, best top laner in the world.
Agreed.
This guy almost seems to just not make mistakes. It's kind of ridiculous, and he can play every style.
GDD's going to snap back here. Takes a couple of fists to his face, but is able to rebind his soul and escape with the wave pushing it.
I think Canyon, unless BDD really overextends, mainly just looking to get Chovy a nice base here. The Dragon is about to come up in 25 seconds. We'll see. Gen.G for sure going to be looking to fight for this one. They now have the Rakan ultimate available as well. And TPs are coming in. Both mid lane is going to try and fight for pride on the wave here. Kiin doesn't FTP, but he is Scion, so with his ultimate, is able to join at reasonable pace.
I mean, this is one of the things that when I watch Gen.G a lot in the LCK had always really impressed me, is that, you know, even if they do build these slight deficits, they
BDD.
BDD, fate sealed across the wall, and once again his ultimate used before that objective fight. Now he's going to have to try and path through 3 members of Gen.G to get down into this river.
It's just a beautiful bit of pressure, and now again, you have this position that was supposed to be this winning position. Now BDD without ult, do you really want to take the fight? I think it becomes so much more risky. But KTT, they are trying to set up in the area, trying to get some traps down. Gen.G looks like they're going to be able to retake this space, though.
Cuzz is sitting on a spike, does have the Sunrise Sky available. That is a big advantage thanks to that early assist, plus the fact that he is up a couple of camps. And we do see BDD is still around, even without the ultimate. If the rest of the team sets up for him, should still be able to do a decent amount of damage.
And look at bot. So right now, it's still deokdam down there, just pushing in this wave. So he's drawn Ruler down, but Ruler is now very separated from the rest of the team. So deokdam does have the inside track to get back to the rest of his squad that's in this area. And BDD now coming again back from mid lane. So they have pretty decent positioning to try to take over this area.
Gen.G using that time to deny a little bit of vision control ward in the pit from KT as they do start up their second dragon. Ruler at the back of the pit. Can Valkyrie in if a fight starts sharpish. Meanwhile, the unstoppable onslaught coming out from Kiin as he charges down here. The Drake falling lower, though, down to 2k. BDD jumping in just to distract. A quickness from Duro, a smite from Cuzz. KT secure the Drake, and a great disengage as well, as Gen.G are the ones retreating, unable to find purchase in the fight.
And KT says thank you very much for watching as we take the objective. Perfect does have to invest his TP, but that's an investment you're happily going to take with Mountain on the board, and the fact that Gen.G is playing a 2-carry composition, as they so often do. This early game is off to a great start here for KT.
It's a fantastic start for KT, and I just really like how they navigated that, because I think a lot of teams, once they lost ult on BDD, would have just said, all right, that's their dragon, we just have to give that. But they navigated it out so incredibly well, you know, playing with Prio through that bot lane. deokdam non-stop pushing just meant Ruler was so sectioned off from the rest of the team that by the time he actually got there, the dragon was basically already gone. and it just became a bit of a flip, and KT do get that, and they're comfortable to continue just playing at this pace.
And for Gen.G, one of the things that they have found many advantage on has been that snap engage. Duro in particular has been exceptional at this as they're...
And there it goes, straight onto deokdam. Cease and desist living as the Caitlyn falls to Canyon. Gen.G on the board in the semifinals.
There you go, that's the engage right there as Duro and Canyon press their R buttons and deokdam goes down.
Yeah, deokdam, nothing much to do about that one. Just kind of gets caught pushing a little bit too far up, and he is on weak side of the map. Everyone else from KT is on that top side, so had to be a little bit more careful. Does get punished, but it is just the one kill, so not the end of the world.
Sometimes you see these plays around the 13-minute, 13:30 mark because people want the plates. So they'll step up a little bit more greedily than they usually would, thinking, oh, there's a bit of 200 extra gold for me,
bit of
put it
money
in my pockets. But because of that, Gen.G collapsed well. And as you say, there really wasn't any support for deokdam on that side of the map.
And one item spikes to come through here. We have the Leandries for Perfect, we have Blade of the Rune King for BD, and we have the Collector for deokdam. All three of those are insane one-item spikes. And we'll see. I think Herald is definitely going to be a setup, and we're already seeing Gen.G set up for that as Duro moving into the enemy jungle to try and get as much vision as possible.
Yeah, Ruler obviously going to be behind on his first item completion, given that he's going for Triforce that has tier, etc. But I've got to say, that's a 200 gold lead. That's it for your Caitlyn Nico against a Corki Rakan. Like, you really would have wanted to build that into a lot more. So credit to Gen.G, great at kind of just minimizing the advantages that they're giving over to deokdam here. And Gen.G, as I was touching on earlier, even when they would sometimes fall behind in the LCK, they're just so masterful at how they approach the team fights and how they actually set up these objectives that getting a lead is very far away from guaranteeing a win against Gen.G.
Yeah, they really are one of the most resilient teams that we have when it comes to both their cross maps, but as well the consistency of their setups for team fights, one of which I think we might be having on our hands soon.
You see a couple of wards behind that Herald pit from Duro. Chovy and Canyon moving towards that top side, perhaps seeing if Perfect oversteps. Cuzz comes across, spotted. Canyon and Chovy have a decision to make. Who are we going to put the damage down onto? There's the Bolt Breaker as Canyon slams his fists into Cuzz. Cuzz chipped away at it a little. Duro's going to start up the Herald here with Gleaming Quill. BDD is working his way up from the bot side, but might just be focused on the Scuttle Crab. Peter looking to see if there's anything he can do here, but it doesn't really feel like KT want to contest right now. The cease and desist from Gen.G, they want the fight on their terms, and they kill off the Nico immediately. Nothing that KT can do to collapse.
I mean, Peter was just way too far ahead of the rest of the team, right? No one's even around him when they do engage on him, and the Nico's just a freebie, an add-on to that Herald, which may mean that Gen.G gets first tower, and that's going to get them very close to feats.
See, Kiin, just as an insurance policy, does TP his way over. In hindsight, not necessary, but given the timing, makes sense that he would go for that the moment that the fight actually starts. And we're slowly starting to see the gold lead dwindle. There will be a TP advantage now, though, here for KT. We'll see if they can leverage that when the Dragon comes up, because Gen.G are still in a position where I think they need to fight for at least the next two Dragons to kind of equalize that, because if KT gets off to Soul Point, the game becomes so much harder to play out, and they have an really, frankly, insane amount of Baron damage as well. So I feel like that makes it even more important that they are able to find that objective fight.
Absolutely agree, and I do like the lane assignments here for KT right now. You put BDD into that side lane. Sion has to go MR early against the Rumble, so now you have this Hollow Radiance, and you're laning against the Blade of the Rune King Yone, which is obviously not going to be something you're going to be able to do much damage towards. Of course, Kiin's job is to just protect the tower, not to win the 1v1, but that can become difficult over time as you can kind of slowly get whittled down. Gen.G, though, a lot of members here around mid, and I'm just expecting them to drop this Herald soon and try to play for this Dragon.
Putting the Herald down mid would give them that prio in the mid lane. Last fight around the Drake, we didn't really see a battle occur at all. KT were able to secure the Dragon and force Gen.G away, but they do have the tools, KT do, to really have these big AoE fights. A Pop Blossom, a Cataclysm, an Equalizer, Fate Sealed on top of it. If they can layer that CC, Gen.G are just going to pop.
As a little bit of damage down on Cuzz, I want to highlight as well the fact the ability for KT to find these angles as BDD.
Weavers will Fate Sealed again from BDD before the neutral. Gen.G collapsed onto him. Did have to use that Weaver's wall, and now the question is, for KT, do you hit?
Oh, Peter lost flash.
Do you go for the fight? Peter, no flash, as you say. That Nico half of a champ if he can't get onto the back line, still looking for the engage. Meanwhile, the cease and desist into the quickness combo. A double charm comes out from Duro, and Gen.G just rip the hearts out of KT.
And that play from Duro, the man that at the beginning of the year was the weak spot for Gen.G, sets up on both sides of the fight. First gets the charm, allows them to engage on the jungler, then flashes his way over, finds the charm, double knock-up, and Gen.G find a big fight.
I mean, the setup is just so far superior. Kiin was waiting in the tri-brush on a pink ward, forced the ult out of BDD, and then in they go. Perfect engage from Duro, double seismic shove. They'll lead them both. They had already forced the flash off of Peter as well. This is just picture perfect here from Gen.G, showing their class around the objectives. And just like that, not only is the advantage gone, you're now 2K behind, you're not close to a soul, and Gen.G once again right back into their comfort zone.
And the two big points for me have been one, Peter, who obviously, even on his Nico, thus far hasn't been able to find the impact. No big ults, seems to be a little disjointed with his team. But also, BDD has not actually been able to have a single offensive ult. Every single time he has been looking to step up, looking to make the play, and his team is going to trust him to do so as well. But every time he's had to ult out defensively, and I do think that is a lot of the power of this composition, that Yone ult layered with the Rumble, layered with the Nico or the Jarvan, and we're not really getting that for KT right now, and they weren't able to get the Dragon as a result.
And it just feels like they clearly want to contest, but they are late multiple times now. It's the exact same thing we saw at the Herald. You know, Peter shows up, he's kind of separated from the rest of the team, walks in, dies. This time, BDD is making the rotation, but they don't have vision control in the river, so he loses his ult, then Peter walks out, loses his flash, then you're getting engaged on. They just don't have all of the setup done properly, and Gen.G is a team that everything has to be perfect against. You must have great setup or you just have no chance.
Because Gen.G suffocate you out of the game. They deny vision around the objectives. KT are stepping into fog of war, and Gen.G have every single tool in their arsenal with the ability just to lock one person up and kill them. And at that moment, you're 4v5, and you can't really take the fight as KT.
And this is also where I think the KT comp, once you start falling behind, this comp struggles, because you have great tools of getting vision, but like who actually goes in? Because with the clone and with Cuzz's flag, you are able to check, are they in the brush? But then what, right? Unless you're able to get at least a little bit of control, someone needs to actually find that engage, because every single member that you might send forward will just get blown
gonna
up.
get spotted potentially here. He's still in that brush.
They don't know.
Walks into the bush. There's Duro, gets the quickness off. Weaver's wall out, and the charm follows up. KT, though, still alive. Peter yet to fall. Cuzz going in with the flag and drag. Fate sealed. Flash away from Canyon. He dashes out with a Bolt Breaker. Gen.G now on the back foot. The ace in the hole cancelled by the knock-up. A seismic shove onto Cuzz. Kiin the first to fall. Gen.G on the back foot. KT still looking to find purchase in the fight.
It's still a big win for KT, though. We'll see if they can turn it into more. Might not want to run the risk with Canyon still alive, but Gen.G overstepped big time there.
Yeah, I mean, Duro just got spotted out. He was on a very deep flank. He was trying to look for an angle to go in there and did find it, but he kind of had to go at a time that he didn't really want to. I think he wanted to wait a little bit longer till the team was there in position, but gets found out, has to go early, and Gen.G just decided we're going to try to take the fight regardless. KT, though, great turnaround, and I think we might have to go back to live because deokdam was just hitting that Otacon. But here it is one more time, just kind of going a little bit early. And BDD has a great turnaround right here with Cuzz.
And then on the other side of that, look at Perfect and how much damage he's actually doing as in the picture, Otacon's going.
Otacon's already started by KT as Gen.G look to take the fight. Canyon
Peter.
not here yet. Peter! Hot Blossom goes wide. And perhaps Gen.G can look to turn this one around now as KT don't have that big engage tool. Gen.G take their turn on the Otacon. Seismic shove just short of clipping onto Perfect. Gen.G still on that Otacon. Down to 3,000 HP. Cuzz looking for the engage, but he's locked up. Decimating Smash doesn't catch him. In the flag and the dragon. Still forced away. Gen.G will claim the Otacon.
Peter was literally seconds away from his flash, but because he doesn't have his available, Chovy's able to flash out, and KT unable to take the Otacon and gonna lose the turret as well.
Yeah, and as soon as that ulti does not hit there from Peter, it's so tough now for KT to re-enter. Cuzz wanted to stay around to see if he could find an opportunity to look for a steal, but Kiin shuts the door on that as well, flashes forward, makes it so his only way out is back to the tower, makes it a guaranteed Otacon for them. And that glimmer of hope you had there for KT around the Otacon snuffed out. And just as fast as it appeared.
If you're KT now, you're looking at feats of strength, 23 petals to 4 on the Otacon. You're looking at Duro and Canyon stepping up together to try and deny blue buffs. Drake up in 10 seconds time. Gen.G just denying any vision for KT.
There's a lot of dive though, and Chovy doesn't have his flash thanks to the play from Peter. If they can get on top of him, take him out. Again, this composition, the only other real source of damage is Ruler on this Corki. So if they can find a way to get BDD, Cuzz, or Perfect onto that backline, that might be an angle, but Perfect doesn't have his flash. Stop was used in that topside play as well.
They go for Canyon, jump on him immediately with the Vault Breaker to get himself out. The tower falls in mid. KT not really defending that mid tower for now, as KT still look to start up this Drake. Will be soul point for them. Chovy on the flank as he wraps around to join his team behind this Drake. Perfect with that equalizer. Weaver's wall. Perfect's on the wrong side of it, but can walk out towards the top side of his jungle. Drake down to 2,000 HP. Peter with the pop blossom, and a fight flowers for KT. BDD dives in. Gen.G are left routed as Ruler has nowhere to go. Flashes, but with an ace in the hole. One more bullet in deokdam's shot. A cataclysm. The tomb for Ruler as KT clean up the fight.
Peter finds the engage to flip the game on its head. BDD and Perfect have the follow-up immediately. Beautiful equalizer, beautiful Yone ult coming across, gets them soul point, is gonna get them multiple towers here. KT with a picture-perfect team fight.
And there is the dive that was able to get KT the win. When they found that best of 5, the final game, it was Cuzz and BDD that consistently found the backline access this time around. Peter says, I don't know how many times, 4th time's the charm, doesn't give up, finds the engage, and KT take a big lead because, again, I want to reiterate, soul point for Mountain Soul into the Gen.G composition is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, and we just have to watch Peter here. Obviously, they tried to go for the engage on Perfect at the top of your screen, but he's able to pull back very, very effectively. Then Peter goes in, finds the beautiful engage. Look at the equalizer across everyone. Look at Yone coming in over the wall, surviving for so long. deokdam completely untouched throughout the whole fight.
And it's the lack of flash on Chovy. He's not able to get out. Just a combo of Peter with that equalizer is enough to take down the Talia, as there he goes! Peter pops off!
How can you not love this guy, man? It is just so fun to cheer for. And look at the damage from Perfect in that fight. You know, this has been such an exciting game one to kick it off. And though it has been a very one-sided history between these two teams of late, you know, Gen.G taking the vast majority of those series, KT, you always have to give them a chance. And you look all time, you know, that is, of course, you know, back in the very old days. This new iteration, you know, when you're looking at game score in 2025, 25-4. When you look at series score, 6-1. But it doesn't matter because only today is what is important. You just need to find purchase in this series, and I think the pressure really is all on Gen.G.
We're trying to control the area around the Baron right now. Duro forced to exit with the grand entrance. Ace in the hole used onto Ruler. Takes a chunk out of him, but not too substantial as KT group up as 5. The Scuttle Crab there will give some vision over to Gen.G, and it looks like KT decide they're not going to force anything right now. Go back, farm up these waves. Infinity Edge on its way for BDD. Already has the BF Sword and the Crit Cloak, so he's very close to completing it.
And deokdam, not quite as close, but also steadily getting closer. That is a crazy spike for both Caitlyn and Yone. And we have seen flashes are available now for Chovy, for Canyon, not quite yet for Ruler. And that is going to make these fights hard. Because again, this is what we saw there was the perfect setup for a KT fight. Just make sure you get on top of either Ruler or Chovy, take them out at the beginning, and we're looking at itemization as well. Chovy, which I think is a lot of utility, has gone for that Rylai's. That's no arm guard.
No, and I think that's probably what he's going to build towards next, but it does mean, and I was going to touch on that, that the 30 item spikes for BDD and deokdam are going to be so much more offensive power. We're going to get a Collector coming through from Ruler. Of course, that's still going to be some power. We're probably going to get a Zhonya's third from Chovy. So the amount of damage that they are going to be pumping out here with BDD and deokdam, if they find that good engage, they have the power behind them to knock them down.
Gen.G know the BDD isn't here right now as Ruler, Valkyrie's in, deokdam has to flash across the wall, equalizer down as well. The Weaver's Wall from Chovy puts him on the back line, a seismic jump, gonna cut down perfect. Cataclysm in as KT look for the fight, but they just lock Gen.G in, and they don't have the damage. Kiin on that front line, Mortal Blade coming out from BDD for the knockup. Chovy flashing forward, chucking the rocks into deokdam, but he can't quite get the damage. BDD finds one, deokdam walks away wounded, Cuzz dives into the middle, but they don't have it. KT routed by Gen.G. BDD locked up with the slow from a decimating smash, and that axe will make him go timber. Kiin picks up the final. It's a 4-for-1 for Gen.G.
And it's the snap engage from Gen.G that gets them back in the lead, as this should be setting up for the Baron. 25 seconds until the Drake, so the timing a little tense, but we'll see if they can get and stave off that soul weight. It's a really big deal.
It's just beautiful here from Canyon and Ruler immediately in onto deokdam, and deokdam just has under so much pressure throughout this fight. Look at this Weaver's Wall, how effective it was. deokdam is not hitting that entire time.
And when we look at the other side, it was perfect that also got trapped by it, so double duty there. The Rumble immediately being out of the fight meant that a lot of damage wasn't quite there. KT clearly caught off guard in this one, and it really does feel like whichever team is the one that pulls the trigger is the one that gets out ahead in the fight.
Gen.G using the knowledge that BDD was catching that wave top, was backing, had to TP in. They knew with that extra couple of seconds for the teleport to finish its cast, they could find that snap engage. They get the Baron, the Drake up, and it looks like KT are giving up pressure around it. Gen.G forced them back. I totally agree with you. I think KT forcing this. Sometimes you need a moment just to let everything reset. They're still on soul point. Gen.G, it's only their second Drake. You have some time to push out your waves before the oncoming storm comes in with these Baron-empowered minions.
Yeah, I mean, KT obviously not out of it just yet, but that was a devastating blow that was dealt to them there by Gen.G. And if you could have won that fight, you're losing Baron, you're losing that early soul, and now it's going to be a long time. That's a KT roller coaster right there.
Yep. That's what we kind of were expecting coming in. And thus far, you know, I think we're still a few ups and downs short of Zil.
You can see Chovy, though, has his Seekers now, you know, almost on that Zhonya's. Double IE has been completed, so a lot of power still there for KT. But Gen.G is just so crisp with these engages. And now that they have the run of the map, it's very difficult to surprise them. Look at the amount of vision that they're actually putting down here, you know, in this entire area. The enemy jungle is just littered with pink wards. It's 4 pink wards plus some additional wards placed down there. It's very, very difficult for KT to find an angle to even attempt a winning fight.
A good thing for KT is they've escaped the majority of the Baron power play without losing any of their inhibitor towers. There's still a minute left on it. That's 2 waves, but with the way that Gen.G are pushing out on the map, it doesn't look like they want to make this push go any further. So for KT, you don't have to worry about super minions. You can push up a little bit out of your own base, but the risk is you only have 1 tier 2 left. So if you're pushing up through mid, there's 2 ways teams can collapse on you. If you're pushing up through bot, you have to be worried about that loop around. Even if you're pushing towards your red buff, you have to be a little bit cautious because Gen.G could be lying in wait.
And Gen.G both have all their sideline towers, which is further kind of limits the space that KT gets to inhibit on the map. I do want to highlight the reason why, as you already mentioned, Matic, they don't really get to do a lot is because of the early Drakes. If KT wasn't at soul point, they could have just said, we don't care about the soul, we're just going to shove in the opposite 2 waves. That's not going to be the case. Baron about to time out here. Gen.G want to get a little bit more damage down, but I think they also know that this turret will hold on. The Chovy says no, and I grab that one as well.
Nice use of the Weaver's Wall there from Chovy.
I just love how much protection there is for Ruler. You know, you see the ace in the hole coming through, Canyon's diving in front, Duro's jumping in. It's just get down, Mr. President. They know they have to keep these carries safe, and I think Gen.G, without question to me, is the best team in the world at playing comps without a ton of threat, right? Yeah. You know, 1-2 carries. They are so good at creating space for Ruler and Chovy. And of course, you have arguably the best in both of their roles to protect, which makes it really worthwhile sacrificing for them.
Does also mean that sometimes they draft comps because they're like, you cannot get away with everything. As
like
we've seen even at this tournament. For KT, the threat of a soul point does mean that they're just a single pick on either Chovy or Canyon away, or Chovy or Ruler rather, although Canyon would also do it, but with the GA it's a little harder, away from getting them a Mountain Soul. And that can really offset a lot of the gold lead that we've already seen, but between the pedals and the amount of map control that Gen.G is there, and Gen.G's well-known ability of taking a game where they're in a slightly advantageous state and turning it into you not being able to play and just kind of watch as your Nexus crumbles.
And it's just so much harder when you get all these luxury items coming in. You touched on the GA, there's a Zhonya's, there's a Locket, a Redemption, and he was on Exhaust. He just actually swapped off of it over towards that Ghost. So the Exhaust does expire, which makes things a little bit easier, but there's so much defensive power, and dive comps become really difficult to pull off in the late game as this defensive itemization comes through, because you don't get a second chance, right? You full send it on Chovy, he presses Zhonya's, you can't just be like, wait, reset, you know? It's very difficult to then be able to disengage from the fight.
It really is. Even things like the upgraded plated steel caps for Ruler, just those little shields that can really make it so the initial burst isn't taking you down. Gen.G pushing in through all 3 lanes right now. Chovy's assigned to top, Kiin's on bot, and the rest of the team are grouping up around mid.
And for a second there, we had the classic KT throughout the year gold graph, where everything is the opposite team, and then BDD was sitting at like 40 gold lead, desperately clinging on. As they do have the IEs, they do have a QSS for BDD as well, but it's got to be one hell of an engage here from KT. And there is just, as we keep highlighting, there's just no vision. There's no surprise angle, so Gen.G will see this attack coming.
There's no wards, nothing out on the map.
They just don't have an easy way to get it down as well. They don't have a tank to face check for the support to run behind, and they also don't have something like a Rakan decimating smash onto Cuzz, caught out with that lack of vision. Kiin with the roar of the Slayer finds his mark. BDD forced away towards the top side. Peter having to flash deokdam underneath the tower. Pop Blossom from Peter will distract the rest of Gen.G. Cannon's going to go into the Guardian Angel, but the Angel's on his shoulder might be enough. Fate sealed from BDD onto the backline. They'll look for Ruler. Kiin flashes. Get down, Mr. Ruler, as he blocks the shot from the ace in the hole. Decimating smash again. Perfect, looking for more. BDD going in with Immortal Strike 3. Tries to get onto Ruler. The damage doesn't tick. Ruler still stands. A Kiin will run for him. BDD finds another Ruler down. Just the mid lane is left alive. BDD versus Chovy. We've seen it so many times over the years.
But Cuzz is coming up faster. They could go for the soul here right now because Cuzz has a much earlier respawn timer. This was an insane fight. The pick set up by Kiin to start it off was incredible, but then Canyon sends it way too far. Look at how deokdam plays this. Flashes back onto the tower, and look at the trap placement as he arrives straight onto the trap. One shot into GA, re-trapped and killed again.
And then it's BDD with Equalizer from Perfect that sets it up here. We do see the stall in the picture.
We gotta go live.
As they actually pulled it to try and get her as much time as possible. Canyon's on his way!
But he's all the way back in base right now. Ping's coming out on where he is. Cuzz and BDD looking for the break. Duro doesn't have the smite from some of the spellbook. It's gonna be sold for KT. From 5k behind, they find their priceless moment.
How is this for a game 1 of the semifinals? Everyone is saying it's going to be a Gen.G stop, but KT refuse to follow the storylines, man. They are just giving everything they've got here. It's still incredibly close. Massive pedal lead, 4k gold lead, but the soul there to generally equalize. And now it's going to come down to the execution. Who can make that big play in what could very well be the final fight of the game? The next one really could decide it.
And Gen.G looking towards this Baron, but KT, another breath of life. A big mistake from Canyon, punished beautifully with the comfort. The fact that it's BDD and Chovy left standing at the end of it all. These two players that have been fighting one another, and between these two, Chovy has so often come out on top. But BDD right now, 6-2 on the Yone, picking it in game 1, a pure show of confidence. And to me, this game, it feels so even because the Mountain Soul is just so much value. And again, it's only 2 carries. Chovy doesn't even have his pan item finished yet.
And look at how tanky BDD is at this point. He's got his Jack Show, he's got a shield bow, and he has a QSS. So he is very difficult to knock down, but they're on the Baron.
Baron begun by Gen.G. KT looking to call the bluff. It's already down to 7k. BDD going forward. There's the Weaver's Wall. Out from Chovy. Peter lands a double knocker, but he's on the wrong side of the wall. The Equalizer down as well. Will chip away at Duro. Baron now resetting. Duro down to half HP. KT on the front foot, on the offensive. Chovy looking for a flick. Doesn't land it. It's a shape splitter anyway. That clone from Peter.
That is 2 big ultimates gone though. As both the Equalizer and the Pop Blossom not available, so BDD and his team definitely taking a risk here. Canyon is behind him.
Duro looking for that redemption because he's still got the quickness. They'll dive onto Perfect and they lock him down. He dies in the River of Fate. Onto the back line with the Cataclysm out as well. But Ruler still stands. Clan's taken out in the end by BDD, who's now making a swift retreat. deokdam in the pit, caught out by Duro, the headshot! He loads another into the chamber, but he can't quite get the damage down. BDD looking for more as he sees his teammates fall. He can't find it. Gen.G somehow win out the fight.
And the Baron stayed least throughout all of that!
Insanity. What an angle from Canyon. And the CC is immaculate onto perfect. They layer it completely 100-0. It is all about this engage coming from the top side. Eyes in onto Canyon and Duro finding that engage on perfect. If perfect does not just get one shot, if he gets his Zonias off there, I think it's a stomp in the fight for KT. But then deokdam gets caught in the pit here. Baron is hitting him this whole time. Even though he knocked down Ruler, he can't finish off Kiin. And then Peter and BDD are trying to get back in to bail him out, but they just can't. And Gen.G again come up with the Baron.
And the fact that Ruler survived there was crazy. Even in the Cataclysm, the bodyguards were there, both Duro and Kiin standing tall, making sure, and if there was an equalizer on top of them, as you highlighted, that would have been it. That would have just been Ruler most likely dead. But now it is this Rebel Baron problem. It doesn't perfectly overlap with the spawn of the Elder, but it should ensure that Gen.G will have a full chokehold of the vision in the map.
Just what a crazy game. And you can see Void Staff now there in for Chovy, and he's got 18 stacks on the Mage Eyes. He's basically full build. Ruler's completed his IE as well. So these carries are getting so powered up at this point that one mistake just means you get one shot.
Flashes up across the board for most of Gen.G. Only Duro lacking it, has the cleanse and the heal right now. On the other side, Cuzz still waiting on his cooldown to come back, but it makes the engage for KT so much harder, because even though Peter now has a flash of his own, the Pop Blossom can be evaded really quickly with that summoner spell.
And Chovy has flash, has stopwatch, so he's alone in the side lane, can also easily join with the Weaver's Wall, and they're just slowly sieging this. KT, one of the few downsides of that Yone is that ranged wave clear is tough, same for the Rumble, so holding this off is tough.
Stoppable onslaught in from Kiin just to break that trap line, just to break this tower. Weaver's Wall out. Perfect's going to be on the Gen.G side of it, but he's down towards the bottom of it and will be able to escape their clutches. The inhibitor tower does fall. Top lane in here below as well. 50 seconds left on this Baron. A couple of waves for Gen.G to play with.
Yeah, but it's KT holding on well. No inhibitors have fallen yet. They did lose the one tower, but only 40 seconds left on this Baron.
He goes in, and he tries to seal the face of Chovy, but he pops a stopwatch immediately. The scepter gets him. Cataclysm off the backline. Gen.G have already lost their mid laner. A GA coming out for KT as they manage to back away. Gen.G lose too. BDD wants to make it more, can't find it, but KT hold on.
The engage from BDD is such a thing of beauty because the Zonias loses so much power against the Caitlyn. So they go in knowing that he's going to use the Zonias. He uses it, gets trapped out of it perfectly by deokdam. This is just such a thing of beauty, playing perfectly to your comp.
And that's a 2 for 0. The trap, the headshot, and the equalizer. Get the roller coaster back up, because now it's a 2 for 0, and Elder is about to spawn. We'll see how the death timers play out. Chovy does FTP, Kiin does as well. But this game is still ongoing.
20 seconds for the Elder, 41 minutes in the game. KT are looking to set up around it. There's a little bit of vision there for Gen.G right now. They do have the TPs on Kiin and Chovy. Kiin still 10 seconds away.
But no Zonias will be available for Chovy, so he's going to be vulnerable.
Teleport comes in for Chovy. KT put up a snap trap line to try and stop them. Peter has that Pop Blossom. They'll look for the Fate Seal. The Elder already down to 7,000. Shape Splitter out. Seismic Shard. Peter gets the Pop Blossom only onto Duro, but the Elder is secured, and now KT will look to turn the fight. Gen.G immediately run for the hills. Kiin flashes across the Fate Sealed from BDD. Trying to take out Chovy. Duro falls on the back line as KT continue to collapse. Cuzz dodges the Seismic Shot, but Chovy survives. The Elder doesn't quite tick him down. In the end, a 1 for 1. But KT secure the Elder Dragon.
KT, they're going to keep looking. They want to try and extend this play. But the trade...
They don't have the waves. They've only got mid.
Yeah, the trade also not the worst, because you'd rather have Cuzz be taken down if you're Gen.G than Duro, but they are going to keep pushing. The backs are going to have to come through, and mid lane is going to fall, but the wave clear for Gen.G might be enough.
Okay, if we watch that, if we get this replay, you have to keep your eyes on the Seraph's cooldown. It came up as the Elder was ticking on him when Cuzz went in, and procs as he would have died to the Elder Dragon execute there. That is insane how close it was. I don't know if we're gonna get to see the items. We probably won't, unfortunately. So you're gonna have to take my word for it. Maybe we can see it highlighted later on, but they get the secure here, and KT decides we're going to full send it. Chovy had no Seraphs still at this moment. No Seraphs still at this moment. It doesn't come up until right now it procs. That is insane. They might have been able to end the game.
And if Chovy doesn't flash the damage on that Cataclysm, that could have been it.
It really could. They call it the Church of Chovy. Well, his prayers are being answered right now. The Archangel on his shoulder saves him. And for Gen.G, they're still looking at Elder for the next minute, but it's going to expire. We talked earlier about the side lane waves, the side lane towers still being up. KT have to do a slow march through this top side.
There's a 15-second period here where Gen.G do not get to contest. And I imagine KT is going to full send it towards the Baron. Now it's KT that are the ones back in control of this game. There is still a good amount of vision though. Looking at the items, Canyon has GA. And we do not can say the same of Cuzz as look at that roller coaster.
Canyon spotted. Canyon spotted. There's a flank ward as well up towards where the Krugs are.
15 seconds.
Gen.G want to look for it. 15 on the Elder. Baron now on the map again. Gen.G trying to step up, trying to face up against KT. The snap trap down. No autos onto Kiin. Perfect looking for a flank with that Pop Blossom. The Baron down, taken by KT. Will they still look for the fight or will they switch away, decide to back away? That's what they do. They'll reset, they'll spend their gold. And once again, they'll face Gen.G on the Rift.
I mean, BDD now has his GA. deokdam has a GA. Cuzz's GA is going to be coming back up. They're going to have triple potentially here. BDD just sold his. He's actually changing it out, so decides not to go for it. But so much power now in this game. It's just going to come down to one fight. This late into the game, the respawn timers are so incredibly long. And the question is, do they actually try to risk it here on a push? Because there's still a lot of standing gold. Both the outer towers are up in the bot lane. They could go clear those up at the very least. But the question is, will they just try to play towards Elder, or will they play aggressively to try to close this game?
We're seeing there the possible TP ward put down by Duro. Note they can't hold on to the turret, but they can at least do that. Gold going to be in favor of KT, but as we're saying, we're at full builds for most people here. The Mountain Soul is firmly in favor of KT, but the Petals 37-4 here for Gen.G. Although the relative value of that experience not really gonna match up at this point. And deokdam and BDD, the amount of damage these two players are dealing in these late game fights, full build on these crit carries is disgusting.
90 seconds on this Baron buff. 130 before the Elder. KT marching down bot. Gen.G trying to defend. Bolt breaker from Canyon is met by a soul and bound from BDD. He snaps back to his team, but not yet to reality as KT are looking to take the first game of their first semi-final over the MSI champions. KT pushing in. Gen.G struggling to find a defense right now.
And this all coming down to this. KT on the verge of taking the first game, but Gen.G are not going to fall over without a fight.
Kiin still that meatball on the front line, but has to pop the ultimate to try and escape. Knocked up, forced away the Nexus towers. KT's target is deokdam. Headshots one. The next one for Gen.G, that last bastion of defense. The cannon minion still there, seismically shoved underneath the turret. The Baron expires in 40 seconds, and again KT just playing it slow, taking it patient, snapping back again. The Nexus tower almost down. Canyon dives in, but Peter distracts the rest of Gen.G. Canyon size the GA, but the rest of Gen.G can't get to him. They've been equalized. The Guardian Angel down on Canyon, meanwhile BDD distracting. Generation Gaming. The Cataclysm in from Cuzz will build the walls of Gen.G's tomb. Gen.G taken down by the might that is the KT Coaster.
And that